I already opened it. I thought I was recording, but I have not read anything yet. Alright, segment 1. You're a full-time educational interpreter at a high school. The administration has made it clear that your role is to facilitate communication and you are not to handle discipline in the classroom. This year you have been assigned to a 9th grade physical science class. In the middle of the lesson, the teacher's cell phone rings. She says, "Excuse me," to the class with a worried expression and a hushed murmuring into the phone, steps out into the hall. You're left alone in the classroom with the students. A low hum of chattering begins. What do you do and why? Well, of course, at that point, if I'm not allowed to make any discipline or I'm only there to facilitate communication, I would look to make sure that my deaf students doesn't want to try to communicate with any of the other students, and then I would pull out my reading materials. Segment 2. You flip through the latest copy of the RID Views when the deaf student gets your attention. She seems troubled and begins to tell you how upset she is that she can't drive because she's deaf. She continues to explain how excited she was about getting her learner's permit like her hearing friends, but her mom just told her last night it's not legal for her to drive since she's deaf. Her face is flushed. She signed something about wishing she were hearing before putting her head down on her desk. Just then, out of the corner of your eye, one of the students locks eyes with you, then bumps his lab partner and says, "The interpreter can't say anything anyway. What do you do and why?" I would make a quick response to the girl and say that obviously she's frustrated, and because to me I see the warning sign of her saying that she wishes she was hearing, and say that if she's having these thoughts, then maybe if she would like to go talk to somebody like her counselor or her case manager, that I'd be more than willing to interpret, but otherwise I can't do anything. And I would ignore the other students because I don't know what they're doing, and I already have my copy out, so I'm not allowed to do any discipline, so I just continue to ignore them. Segment 3. You observe a couple of students in the back of the room are laughing a little harder than the others, and there is some playful shoving and back and forth on the stools. No one seems to be angry, but you overhear, "I'm not, you do it." The other students stand up and, still sniggering, proceeds to the corner where the emerging shower is hosed. He pulls a chain and the water begins to pour from the shower. Alarmed at the speed and amount of the flow, he hurriedly pulls the chain again and attempting to turn it off. His lab partner, as well as another student, run over to try to help him. To avail, all three are soaked and panicking. They scamper back to their seats just like the rest of the students, watch in horror as the water, now gushing, spreads rapidly and begins covering the floor of the entire room. What do I do and why? Well, I can't do anything. Yes, there is water spilling in the room, but nobody is in immediate danger and nobody's hurt. So I continue not to say anything but monitor the water. There is now over an inch of water standing in the room, and it's rising rapidly. Just then the teacher turns to the class. She looks around in shock, saying nothing for a moment, then rushes over and presses an obscure shut-off button on the wall next to the shower. Once the deluge is under control, she surveys the room and calls the 3 wet students to the front of the room and demands to know what happened. They remain silent. She looks out over the class and asks for an explanation. None of the students respond, and all eyes turn on you. What do you do and why? Well, she hasn't addressed me yet, so I'm not going to say anything until she says something to me. But once again, she's in charge of her class and she walked out. And if none of the students want to say anything, that's on them, not on me. Segment 5. The science wing has to be shut down and classes relocated so that the flooding can be taken care of. After school, you are called to the principal's office. When you arrive, You hear the science teacher's muffled voice through the glass. Soon she exits, visibly flustered, and the principal asks you to step inside. You close the door, and he offers you a seat. He begins by saying that he understands your role as the interpreter, but that the considerable damage has been done to the school, and it is imperative that they identify the culprit. None of the students are talking, and the teacher has stated that she has no idea who is responsible, only that she left you in charge of the class. What do you do and why? Well, since I did know that there was going to be considerable damage since there was over an inch, during my break in between classes, I would have texted whoever is my boss for interpreting services, so they're aware of the situation for me being called in later on. And then once I'm in the principal's office, I would blatantly say, no, she never verbally told me I'm in charge of the class, and since I have been told I am not there to discipline, there was nothing I could do, but it is the responsibility of the 3 children she already pointed out who are soaking wet, that if they're not talking, then, it's got to be one of them. So it's not on me, but maybe they should be held responsible for what they did. They are in 9th grade, so they do know what they did was wrong. So, but it is not my duty to pick out who actually pulled the chain. But even then, I don't really know who pulled the chain because I was reading my RID views, so I can really tell them anyways. I would just, well, obviously it's one of those 3, so I don't see where I need to be involved anymore, and if they would like to discuss this further, I would like to have my boss come in with me and discuss this problem further. Thank you.